All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We're really excited about the content we're presenting to you today because AI has been a hot topic for a little while, if you didn't know that. And we get asked about it all the time. So people just want to know how can they stay on top of this subject and leverage it as an advantage in their business, as well as the risks that might come along with it. And today we have president of Top Dog PC, Joel Malmberg. He's going to be talking about unleashing the power of AI and giving you kind of an introductory guide to Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is kind of a lower stakes way to get in this game and start leveraging something today. And if you don't know us, Top Dog is an IT service provider serving the Twin Cities metro area. And we really think you guys will enjoy this today. So Joel has presented this content to a few groups already, and the feedback has been really good. And so we want to share it with the masses, and hopefully it helps you. So if at the end of this you know anyone else that you think could benefit from this presentation, we will be doing it 4 more times in the coming weeks. So you can let them know, have them follow our LinkedIn page, forward the email invitation if you get another one, or just introduce them to us. And we'll be happy to share this content with whoever can use it. So with that being said, let's talk AI. Joe, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, thanks, Jordan. I'm going to share my screen here and get this started because I got a lot of content to share with everybody. All right. Can you see that, Jordan? I just want to make sure that that's all good.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, great. So we're gonna jump into this. There are just a note. This is kind of an outline of here what we're going to be going into. I just want to do a brief overview of who we are at Top Dog PC for those of you who don't know who we are, and we're going to dig into AI and where it is today, where it came from, where it is today, different types of it. Looking at Chat GPT versus 365's Copilot. That's a question that we get a lot. Data security is a really important piece of this that can't be overstated. We're going to look at some prompting, how prompts work. We're going to look at the Copilot integration in the Microsoft applications. I'm going to touch on Copilot personas, and then we're just going to cover some highlights and wrap. There's a lot to go through, so I'm really excited. I hope you guys are gonna you guys get something out of this because it's one of the cooler things that I've seen in recent memory. Excites me. So first of all, who's Top Dog PC Services? So just so that give a little background on me, why I do what I do. When I was a young kid, when I was heading into 6th grade, I was a 5th grader heading into 6th grade. My parents told us we were moving from Wisconsin, where we were living at the time, North Dakota, and we moved in the middle of the summer. It was really, really boring, awful time for me of my life because I didn't know anybody. And then once school started, it was still not great. I didn't make any friends. I was actually getting bullied. Life kind of sucked at the time. But I had a good friend still in Wisconsin who I kept in touch with. He's my best friend at the time, Sean Fisher. He's still a great friend of mine. We sent letters back and forth and paid long distance charges to talk to each other. And one day in the mail, I got a letter from him, and it had inside it was actually just an envelope with a 3.5-inch floppy disk. And on the floppy disk, there was a piece of paper on there that said, hey, Joey, put this in your computer and type the following command. And I still remember it was copy /letter.txt space PRN. And that was me. I was just copying that a text file to the printer, and I hit enter, and it printed out his letter on my printer, and my impact printer, zip, back and forth. It was the coolest thing in the world. Now, I had a computer, obviously, but I didn't really know what to do with it beyond writing papers and like making banners. That was when we had the long pieces of paper on there. So on there, it said, hey, here are some phone numbers. Here's some software on there's software on this disk and some phone numbers to local bulletin board systems. I used that software, I installed it on my computer, and I connected to these bulletin board systems, kind of a precursor to the internet. There's a little local computer IT community, and I connected with this local community of IT people in Bismarck, North Dakota. And I ended up meeting one of my absolute best friends on there because he ran one of these BBSs. And he turned out to be the person that gave me my first job out of college. And I met with some of the brightest people in IT at that job. So this little thing that I got, this little nudge that I got, turned this computer that I didn't know a whole lot about into this thing that became my entire life. And that's a lot. I see some parallels there between what ChatGPT, Copilot, this large language model AI is going to be doing, I think, for us moving forward. There's this thing that we know exists out there, but we don't really know how to manipulate it. And I still get really excited about that, how technology can impact lives. So without further ado, let's dig into this. So talking about AI, introduction. AI traditionally, the term AI, artificial intelligence, has been bantered around a lot in the past, and it's true that there are other types of AI. Machine learning has typically been the type of AI that we've been exposed to, over the past 10, 20 years, and we see that used a lot in different things. I have Netflix and YouTube up here because it uses that machine learning to give you the recommendations that we get when we are done watching a video, or they think there's a new movie or something that they want us to watch. I have Gmail on here. It's true for other tools as well, like the ones we use for the anti-spam tools that there are out there. They're looking for trends and things that look similar. Generative AI is very different from that. Generative AI is what the term that we're using for this large language model, generative AI, like ChatGPT and Copilot for 365. There are some really great videos on YouTube that do a really excellent job of breaking down how these tools work without getting incredibly complex or technical, but it's a much bigger topic than I wanted to tackle on this call. But essentially, I think it's important to know that they mimic neurons in the human brain. These large language models are consuming an incredibly large amount of data. In many cases, they're downloading most of the internet and pulling in that information that humans have written to train them. And there is more than one model available. ChatGPT is version 3 and 4, and they just have a new version that they just released that is supposed to be even better. I think it's really interesting to see how quickly ChatGPT made it from 0 to 100 million users. If we look at the history of mobile phones and internet and even Facebook, the amount of time, the years that took for that to hit 100 million people, ChatGPT hit that in 3 months. So obviously an incredible amount of interest in this, and for very good reason, because again, like I said, I haven't seen anything like this in my time in this industry. So now how do we use this in a business, right? So these are a lot of different ways that we're seeing this being used right now. Customer service chatbots, conversational AI. So if you go on a website and you're asking questions, you may not be talking to a person. I had a picture sent to me the other day from one of my colleagues in my IT business owners peer group of a drive-through that was manned by AI. You spoke into it and it took your order. But what I'm seeing a lot more is that AI is not currently in a position where it's taking a lot of jobs. What it's doing right now, I think, is providing a boost to your talented staff. So marketing, man, great way to generate campaign ideas, analyze sentiment from technology, just allowing, we're already seeing it. You'll get some demos here of how you can use it to improve your search queries. They're using it in healthcare and science, some pretty cool things. And legal, of course, legal, you still got to have an attorney's mind, and you have to check that what it's outputting is accurate. But even in banking, where you've got a regulated industry, they're using it to help detect fraud. All right, so this presentation is about Copilot for 365, and so I wanted to show that there's more than one version of Copilot, much like many of Microsoft's other products, where they've labeled personal versions of tools the same things as business versions, and they're different. They've done the same thing with Copilot, but they're pushing Copilot throughout their entire ecosystem. So there's a free version you can go to right now without a license. Go to copilot.microsoft.com. It's formerly Bing Chat, and it's going to give you some basic web search availability. They have a pro version. This is really a version for a personal family user. I would say if you have an Outlook.com address, it's $20 a month, and that gives you access into Outlook, and it also brings it into your Office applications if you need to use it there. One we're talking about today is this one here, and you can see this gives you all of the things that they have listed here. We'll go into what some of those are here in a moment. So one of the questions I get a lot as we've been going down the road with Copilot is, what is the difference between Copilot and ChatGPT? Well, one thing that's important to know is that Microsoft is actually licensing ChatGPT for Copilot. So they're using the ChatGPT, one of their engines, for Copilot. And they have the ability to swap that out in the future, but right now they're using, I think, ChatGPT 3 or 4. The difference, though, between using these two is that if you're using Copilot for 365, everything that you are putting into that, the questions that you're asking, the documents that you're feeding into it, that's all private and siloed into your own little world. If you ask ChatGPT a question, it's taking your question and it's using it to train ChatGPT. So if you're providing, you have to be really careful that information you're providing that, because you could be giving information that you don't want it to have. There have been records of companies putting source code into there that they shouldn't have, and now it's in the system. It's part of the machine. Copilot also gives you access to your native applications. So we're gonna show you some demos of that, how it interacts directly with the Office suite. And then, of course, you get priority access. So when ChatGPT first started out, when they're getting those 10 million users, there are oftentimes you'd log into it and it'd say you'd have to wait a while because it is very computationally expensive. So you get priority access. You're not going to have to wait. So let's talk about 365, some of the requirements. We'll get into this a little bit later. There's going to be something we can share with you at the end of this. We'll share with all the participants that will really help you on your AI journey to determine if you're ready for it. But from a pure licensing perspective, these are the things that you're going to need. You're either going to need a 365 Business Standard or Business Premium license, or an Office 365 E3 or Microsoft 365 E3. A lot of the people that our clients that we work with are in these first two items. They're going to have standard or premium. We are recommending premium to anybody right now that is trying to figure out what they should have, because it has everything that you could possibly need from Microsoft. And it's a really great product. There's no minimum order. So if you've got 300 users in your environment and you just want to have one person have it, you can order just the one. But they do make you prepay for it. So you can't pay for it monthly. You have to pay for it. It's $30 a month. It's a $360 a year. All right, so just a couple basics. Copilot is going to, for 365, has access to the same data that your 365 account has. So there are some security considerations with that as well. It interacts with Microsoft Graph. Microsoft Graph is a tool that Microsoft has created that bridges all of these different data sources: your email, your OneDrive, Teams, SharePoint, etc. And then it provides this commercial data protection that you don't get in those other two versions, in that free version that was highlighted in that previous slide. So when we're thinking about security, your data is siloed within your own little Microsoft 365 service boundary. So basically, they're giving you your own ChatGPT engine, and what you're feeding into it is really just feeding back into your own little engine. It's not feeding into the engine at large. So it's a private large language model. They don't feed back in. It's not being used to train the large language model for the rest of the internet. But it does have access to everything your user account does. And I've said that twice now. And why do I say that twice? Because right now, if you're like a lot of companies, I'm sure ours included, you have rights and permissions on your shared resources that are probably not perfect. And there are probably things people have access to that they don't know they have access to right now, and they don't really care. But if they ask the Copilot a question like, how much money does so-and-so make? And they have access to that information, Copilot might give them that information. So that's something to consider as you're working through this AI journey. So we talked about prompts. I wanted to talk about prompts. This is a really important piece of this. This is the thing I think that they've been talking about for a long time in IT, and the growth of IT, is that one day everybody's going to be a programmer. This is really what this is, I think. We can speak to our computer like it's a human being and ask for something to happen. We don't have to. It's a complete shift in thought from like your Google searches, which I think we've all gotten to be really good at. Now it's a real question, and it's, what do I want done? Why do I want this done? And this is truly the most important part of your query, of your prompt, is the context. why do I want this done? Because this is going to affect the output of how this is generated. If there's some source data that you want it to look at, that's what we're going to define that. And then what our expectations are, so who's our audience, what type of language do we want, and you can tune that because you get a response and you can say, hey, adjust this a little bit, tweak it a little bit. So some best practices when you're generating these, and we're going to get into some examples here in a minute. Be specific. Vagueness is really tough for these things to understand. It's going to do its best, or it might just say, I need more information. If there's a complex task, it's not always great at identifying them. Sometimes it surprises me, but break those down and provide that point of view. That's the context, or the, who is this for? Is this are you the point of view from which you're supposed to be looking at the problem as ChatGPT, or excuse me, as Copilot, or the point of view for our audience? Don't overcomplicate things, and then always continue the conversation. And this is also interesting to me. Microsoft has mentioned this a lot in their documentation for this, is to be polite. They always want us to be polite, and I don't know that this is something that the model really cares about, but I think that they are considering the fact that as humans, we're going to be so used to talking to our computers that we're going to stop being nice to other people in real life. That's just my guess. All right, so let's look at Copilot for Outlook. So Outlook can do some really cool stuff. It can generate summaries of emails. We can have it generate drafts. We can have it coach. There's a meetings thing that will allow us to follow meetings that I'll show you in a moment here with the Teams integration. But why don't we start with the summary? So I got an email the other day. This is from St. Paul Saints baseball. Obviously not a super important business email, but I wanted to be able to show you what this looks like. And they have this summary by Copilot. And this I'd already generated, which is why it came up so quickly. But it took that email and it gave me just a very quick, short summary of it. This is awesome when you get those long email threads forwarded to you with like 50 people involved on them that you're supposed to then distill down. This thing does an amazing job of that. I got an email the other day from a bunch of people in my peer group, and I hit that button and I just copy pasted that into the response for everybody else who didn't want to read it. And I think all of them signed up for Copilot after that. This is another cool feature. So this is one where you can ask Copilot to help you draft a response. So in this case, I'm going to respond, but I want to tell them I'd love to attend, but I want to know how good the food is going to be first. So I have a little control over the speed of this video, because Copilot can take a little while sometimes, and it's generated this response. So it sounds good. Give me some information on the vendors, particularly this one, El Burrito Mercado. Looking for a day full of flavor. Now, I didn't get too deep into this, but you can then say, hey, I want to make this response more formal or less formal, and it will go in and readjust that for you. But you can see how this can save you some time. So here's another example. Let's just say we get an angry customer. This one came from this jerk. Let us know that our service is terrible. This is another one where I can say, hey, you know what? I want to reply, and we're going to use Copilot to help us with that response. So we're going to click on the Copilot icon here. I'm going to kind of skip ahead a little bit. There we go. So in this case, I wanted to write I'm telling it what to write. I wanted to write a professional and friendly apologetic response. I want to invite them to schedule a call with us, okay? And there's my phone number, which is clearly not my real phone number. And it's going to generate a draft. So here's the draft it did, and I think gonna kick it into there. So one thing I think is pretty neat about this is that I asked it to schedule some time with me. It actually looked at my calendar and saw that these were times that I was available. So I'm gonna clear out that response, and we're gonna try again. This time I'm gonna play the part of somebody who's just replying in the heat of the moment and maybe not being completely level-headed. I'm kind of coming off abrasive and I'm misspelling things. So in this case, I'm going to ask for some coaching on my response, because a lot of us, we can write these emails, we can write things up, but maybe we just want to get a second opinion on how we're coming across.
It might be therapeutic to do that. Write it the way you want, and then have the coach fix it.
Right, exactly. So this guy's going to So and immediately it's finding things. It's saying, hey, you're not being respectful in here. Here are a number of different ways that you could adjust this. It's not making those changes for us. In this case, it's allowing us to make the changes, but we're going through and making them. And if you don't care for what it is, they have a regenerate button on there, and it'll give you more suggestions. So really great, powerful way for you to come up with a response before you hit that send button. So in Excel is a tool that is great, but I am not at all an expert in. I am probably about as good in Excel, as powerful in Excel, as somebody who's gone through their first 2 or 3 days of an Excel mastery course. So I'm constantly looking things up online. So let's look at this example. This is just some generic data about marketing campaigns. So we can see the campaign name, when it started and ended, how much it cost, and what the ROI percentage was, how it went out, the audience, and the channel, and conversion rate and revenue and duration. So let's just say I wanted to pull some data. I wanted to get some insights from this data. This is where I think Excel, Copilot for Excel is super helpful. I want to compare the organic versus the paid promotion versus the referral channel ROI on a graph, and I misspelled that, so I'll fix that. And it's gonna generate this. I'm gonna just zip ahead here a little bit because we're watching a recording of what I put in there yesterday, and it's gonna kick out this response. Now, what's cool about this is that I can hit a button here and add that to a new sheet, and it's giving me the additional information. I can also then say, hey, you know what? I want to change this to a pie chart or a line chart or something like that. You can also just ask it to show suggestions. So it's looking at the data and it's saying, hey, here's some data. Here's something that might be useful to you. And so in this case, it's a profit one, and it's saying, here's the formula to review the profit that you made on each of these. So you can go in there and then you can add that column. So really cool, powerful stuff that normally I'd have to visit a bunch of Excel tutorials to do, and in this case, I don't need to do that at all. This file is an example of something that we deal with a lot. So we get like a company name, phone number, a website, a list of licenses, first name, last name, and we've got to massage this somehow so we can use it to create new users or import people into something. So in this case, a relatively simple task that I find myself having to do a lot. I've got to know everything that's before the @ sign in this column. So I want you to just write a formula that creates a new column with the value of the data before the @ sign in that email column. And it's thinking about it here. I don't know where my mouse went. There it is. And it's kicking out this response here. And there it is. And we can insert it, and boom, I've got that first part, everything before that @ sign. Super cool, right? Now, let's just say I'm looking at this and I'm like, this is a very, very simple thing. And there are people who who work with Excel all the time and are laughing at the fact that I'm doing this, but let's do calculate license quantities for each of these. And it's going to generate the formula for that, and then we can insert that in, and that's calculating. Yep, there's 1 in there, there's 2 in there, there's all the way down the line. So just a couple examples there. Those are very lightweight. Copilot's in preview across a lot of these tools, but there's an awful lot that you're going to be able to do, especially if you're a novice or even if you're a power user. Let's dig into Copilot for Word. Word can do some really cool stuff. You can have it create an initial draft based on just a topic that you provide it. There are a number of other things it can do though too. So I don't know how many people on this call know this, but our Vice President Jordan Darling is a co-host of a podcast, and so I took one of his most recent podcasts. He doesn't know that I did this, and I imported it into Microsoft Word. You can actually just go up here into Dictate and upload an audio file to Word, and it'll convert it to text. And so I had to do that, and this podcast's an hour long, and I didn't have time to listen to it this week, so I'm going to ask it just to give me kind of the 5 of the top things that came from this, and it's going to go through and pull it together. It does take a minute, and here we go. we've got this list of like the 5 things that that this thing has come up with that it thinks were the most important that came from that. So a really cool way to summarize a document.
The podcast could have been 10 minutes long.
Yeah. Just you wait till you see what's next, Jordan. So I think this is really cool too. So if you're somebody who, maybe you're good at articulating, I feel like you're good at articulating an idea in words. If you're using dictation in Word, this was something that one of his co-hosts said, and I thought I made a great point there, but now I need to write this out. So I'm going to have Copilot rewrite this. We can see it's generating different ways for this to be rewritten. And what's really cool about this is that not only does it give us this first response, it's also going to give us 2 more. So I like this first one quite a bit, but it's giving us some additional ones as well. And I like the first one because it's the most succinct. So I'll go with that one and hit replace, and boom, it's in there, and it's doing the same. It's trying to say the same thing in fewer words. So let's see, I guess we just did that. I think I showed the same thing twice. All right, so Copilot for PowerPoint. This one is awesome, especially considering I had to use PowerPoint pretty heavily for this. I've been digging into it a little bit more deeply than I maybe had before. You can do some really awesome, fun stuff with PowerPoint to kickstart your presentations. So I'm going to take that same list of things from Jordan's podcast, and I'm going to ask it to create a presentation based on those. So I took that summary, I saved it as a file, and you see that you can click on this and they give you these prompts ahead of time. And I say, I want to create a presentation from a file. So I'm choosing that file and it's analyzing the file. And now it's creating a list of topics based on that. And these are all the slides that it's going to be generating. And it's not perfect. You can see it's not perfect, but this is going to generate something that's going to get you started. And now it's picking up images that you might want, and it's adding the slides. So clearly we're not going to call it this unless maybe Jordan would want to call it this. I don't know. But it's giving us a nice start. It's giving us some nice templates. It's giving us images that can fit with this. And it's breaking these down. But we have a really great head start on something that we don't have to create entirely from scratch. And let's just say that I've got something I've created already, and in this case I'm like, you know what, I want to add a slide about the importance of planning for budgeting for vCISO services, because that's what the podcast is about vCISOs. I have a little trouble typing this out here, but this is you can do something very basic like this where you're just asking it to generate a single slide for you, and it's going to build that slide out. So there's a slide, give us some nice artwork, and I didn't give it any other context, but it did give me these 3 bullet points, and it gave me the notes. Yeah, this slide looks great. How about we create an effect, add an effect to the slide as well? And so you don't have to go in and do this anymore yourself. It went ahead and added the effect. You can have it add effects to every single slide. You can add animations. You can replace artwork. I did one of these earlier, and it did a slide about money, and it had Russian rubles on it. So you can imagine you might want to replace that with a different image. But really, this is what I'm talking about, where tools like this can make your good workers more productive, because they're not spending their time, doing these very basic things that an assistant like this can help prepare for them.
New episodes drop every Friday. Like, share, subscribe.
All right. That'll be one of the other piece of things that he shares at the end of this meeting. So Copilot for Teams. So Teams is probably the most mature of the Microsoft Copilot tools, or the tools that have Microsoft Copilot added to them. Probably because it's had such an explosion in growth since 2020, during which everyone had to deploy something like this since we were all working remotely. In this case, I actually have not created something. I wish I could have created something for you. So we're going to be watching a little recap that Microsoft put together. I didn't do it because, we're using our own data for this, and everything that I had that I could generate with was contained things I thought might be too sensitive to share with everybody. So it's not as high quality of a video as the other ones are, but it's still I think valuable. And so imagine that you have an appointment that conflicts with with another appointment on your calendar. And what if you could do both? With Copilot, you can choose to follow a meeting. After the meeting ends, Copilot's going to summarize what you missed. So you'll get a notification in Teams when it's ready, and it's going to give you this whole recap of the meeting. All right. And it's going to give you notes on it. It's going to give you tasks that are potential follow-ups on it. You'll see, so maybe in this case, we saw that this certain customer was discussed. So you want to learn more, and you can have Copilot, you can ask Copilot some clarifying questions without having to actually, listen to the entire recording or watch the video. And it'll give you context. You can ask it if there were other solutions that were considered. And it also, one thing I didn't mention that's different about Copilot compared to ChatGPT is that it gives you citations on everything. So this is a really cool thing. So if you're somebody who's ever been late to a Teams meeting, or you're in an active meeting and you want to ask questions, you can ask it real time. I was late to a meeting the other day, and I started asking it what I missed, and I found out that one of our staff members was coming back into the office. He'd been gone overseas for a while, and I found out he was coming back the next week, which is great. So you can ask it to summarize the meeting so far. You can ask what points were made. You can ask it to really, it's interesting because you can capture the spirit of the whole discussion. So really cool, super powerful, very mature tools in Teams. One of the more valuable things for me, and I'll show you just a little breakdown here of what this looks like. So once you've recorded a meeting, if you have Copilot enabled and it's in Teams, just some of the breakdowns, you can see all the people. It shows you a heat map of when they were speaking, who spoke in there, which is kind of cool. The meeting notes are broken down. You've got your follow-up tasks. If there were any documents shared there, of course, you can then interact with it later and ask questions about it. This mentions button is going to tell you anytime your name was dropped in there, so you can see if there was something specific you need to know about, but Copilot's going to try to capture that as well. So very cool stuff. There's a lot of, basically what happens, you're recording this, it's converting that voice to text, and now it's got all of that fed into your own little large language model that you can query. All right, so OneNote. I don't know if you guys are like me and use OneNote, but I use OneNote a lot. I'm a big fan of it. There's another tool called LoopUp that Microsoft is releasing that I think is going to supplant this. But for now, I'll show you some of the things with OneNote. The things with OneNote are not really especially unique to it. It's more of kind of the same. But I'll show you one of the things I have on here. So this is a letter that I wrote to our Governor Walz, a couple of years ago, because they decided that Top Dog PC should. The Department of Revenue thought that Top Dog PC deserved to have both a business return audit as well as a sales tax audit at the exact same time. It was an awful lot of fun, and I thought maybe that they should consider not doing that to us. So I sent this off to him, and I just let him know I wasn't happy about it, and I thought maybe they could change some things. And I don't think he probably ever read this letter, but I did get on his mailing list. So I got that going for me. But maybe if I had made it a little bit shorter, maybe he would have scanned it and gotten the gist of it, rather than just saying, oh, this is too long, didn't read. So here we go. There's my very quick summary that it created, right? And now I'm thinking, you know what, that's great, but here are the things that, how about I can ask this to create a to-do list. So this is a really cool thing if you're actually collecting notes from a meeting and you wanted to generate what are the things that the takeaways, the to-dos. And so here's the to-dos that I came from. So maybe I would have had a better response on this with a much shorter letter like that.
Great point.
Yeah. So Microsoft Copilot chat. This is everything I've shown you is kind of the baby steps into the world of generative AI with Copilot, this is where the real power happens with this. There's some really, really cool stuff you can do with this. Everything I've shown you so far is very much, level 100, scratching the surface of what we can do with these things. There's a great resource which we will send a link to in an email, follow-up email. It's the Copilot Labs. And it provides you a lot of great resources on how to ask questions to Copilot chat. There is now a button. If you have Windows 11, there's a Copilot button on your computer that you can use to access this, but you can also access it at copilot.microsoft.com if you are licensed. You can ask it basic questions. So, if you're out of the office for a week, you can say, what happened last week? What happened last week between my emails and my chats that I was involved in? Anything that's hot, any files that we're referencing. We'll give you some examples of these. You can also make it generate new documents and new images. So this one here, I believe, let's see, what is this one? This is one that I wanted to ask it to find any files in the last week that reference Copilot. And this one is in that Windows 11 view, and that's why it's tall and skinny. So it's looking through here, and it found a presentation that Jordan made last Monday, and it's giving me a little bit of information about that. So super powerful, right? So that's kind of a cool it's a cool way to find a neat way to find relevant documents, but it's also important to note too, if Jordan didn't want me to know about that and I had access to it, it's going to show it to me.
I see how you're using Copilot to spy on me.
Yeah, exactly. So here's another one. I went fishing. I was out of town last week with my dad. My dad's John Malmberg. So I'm asking it, what are some notable emails that I got from him in the last 30 days? So it's looking through everything, but I said emails. So it's looking at my emails, and it's giving me, we've got pictures of fish in here and talking about the menu that we're going to have. And some people have allergies on the trip, but it's giving me all that. And again, there are footnotes on all of these. They're all highlighted, and I can click on any single one of these and it'll take me to the message that it's referring to. Super cool. And then it's giving me some additional prompts there too. So, one of them was about one of his friends going to a World War II fighter museum in Granite Falls, and I can ask for more details on that if I want to. So this is kind of next level Copilot. So I was talking about personas earlier. This is an example of a persona. So this is using Copilot to create essentially an identity that is going to help us with a task. So in this case, I'm asking it to help us document a task to use for our internal operations. So I don't have to tell you that operations are what bring your company value. But this isn't, building these documents isn't something that we do day to day in most of our positions. So not really knowing where to start, but understanding where we need to, what kind of output we want. This is a great way to kickstart it. So we're telling Copilot that you're acting as an assistant who's going to ask us about these processes with the goal of documenting them for new hires and teammates, right? So we want to create a table at the end that lays out the first step of the work process and all intermediate steps to the final goal. But I'm also asking it to do this in phases. So you can see this is just a block of text. Copilot doesn't care how we ask questions. It doesn't even care that much about punctuation. But phase one, we want to ask the user to describe the process. 2, once they get that information, use their expertise to ask investigative questions and detail and clarity. And this is going to give that context and detail for that final output. And then they're going to read it back to us in a summary, and they're going to ask if there's anything else that we're missing. And then it's going to produce that final table that lays out all the steps of the process into one column with a description of it in the other column. And then it's going to give us a paragraph of plain language at the end, because that's what we're really asking for at the end. That's our output. So I'm kicking this thing into Copilot, and it's reading this through. And this is where, we're doing some real human language programming. And it's saying, great, let's start. Describe the process that you want to document. Well, in my case, I want to document how we are collecting mail in our office. We share our office with another company, and I want to talk about how it is that we figure out whose mail is whose. So I'm giving it a very brief description that a couple people in our office are using their mail key to grab the mail, bring it up to the mailboxes and organize it in an appropriate inbox. So now it's asking some clarifying questions. What are the steps that they use? How do they determine which mail belongs to who? Is there a method or system used for organizing packages? And are there any special considerations or steps taken? So I'm going through and I'm responding to this, and I'm saying, they're labeled, packages are sorted together, confidential mail is delivered to the recipient. And saying, great, I'm going to take that in. So here it is, just to clarify, here are the pieces. So phase 2, is there a time of day that this is happening when it's collected? How are they organized? Is there a procedure? So, getting the additional detail down. And I'm responding, if it's confidential, if they're not available, we'll put it on their desk. Sure, if we don't track inbound packages. And it's saying, great, all right, here's kind of my preview summary of this. This is how things are handled for mail, and is there anything that it looks like it's missing? I want it to know that we put the mail key inside of Depth Communications inbox, and so it's going to regenerate this with that previous information, and it's taking that last piece of information that I provided it, and it's adding it in there. And so we're going to tell it to just proceed. Let's go to phase 4, and it's going to take all that and it's going to give me the output that I asked for. So we're going to see this thing being kicked out into columns, followed by a paragraph presentation. And what's really neat about this, if you see right here, we've got a copy button. So I can copy and paste this into a document, or you can just tell it to export this into a document now. So if you're happy with this, this looks good. Thank you. I said thank you. I was nice to the robot. That's what Microsoft wants us to do. So very cool. That's a more advanced prompt, and there are tons of these available on that labs site. So moving on from kind of hard demos of how this product works. This is where we were about a year ago. This is where companies were about a year ago as far as generative AI adoption goes. Everyone was in the exploring piece. They thought, hey, this thing's really cool. How can I use it in my organization? And already, about 20% companies were piloting or using it in their own production. I expect these numbers have changed pretty significantly, and a number of people probably don't even know that the tools that they're using right now that they're already subscribed to might have some of these technologies hooked into them. But internally, I haven't seen a lot yet, but we can certainly help with that. Just figuring out what your strategy is going to be. I thought this was really impactful. So this was Microsoft released Copilot to enterprises last year. They opened it up to the rest of us, earlier this year, and they did these are the results of their survey with their enterprise customers. I think there's a lot. Clearly, there's a lot of people found value in it, when they're using it. So 87% said they're more productive and they can focus. A large percent, almost 80%, they can focus on important work. I thought all these things were really great. If there's at least 1 in 3 at a 30-minute time saving per day, wow, you're paying about $1 a day for this software. So that's instant ROI. I thought this was a really interesting one that, it could influence your choice of employer in today's competitive hiring environment. I think that's a pretty cool one. 83% wouldn't want to go back to working without Copilot. So this should also inform your strategy. Like I said, you don't have to get this for everybody in your organization. Get it for select people to start. That would be my recommendation. And then you don't have to give it to someone and then take it away later. So as far as your strategy goes, I think that Copilot, my opinion is that Copilot is a really great way to give you a guided introduction to the power of this whole large language model, artificial intelligence world, because they've got so many helping, the different buttons and excuse me, the tools that let you click through to view different files or to import files and use existing data that you have as part of your responses. Like I said, this is going to flex a different muscle in your brain. We don't use this with a computer typically. We don't generally get this specific with people that we're working with because we're in this case, like that most recent example I gave of somebody of the software helping us build out a process. We're telling the software who they are, and then we're telling it what we want them to do. So it's a different thought process. So again, inform your AI strategy with what you're unlocking by making these connections with AI, and then start thinking now, and you'll be ready for this. So I'm going to leave with just a couple things. These are the top 10. So if you decide to get Copilot, if you're an existing client of ours, let us know. We can turn it on for however many users you want to turn it on for in your environment. We can share any of these with you. These are some really simple, cool things. Just like I said, recapping a meeting, summarizing a thread. We looked at that. Drafting an email, summarizing a document. This is neat if you're trying to learn about something. Tell me about a topic. Give me some ideas for. Help me write something. What did they say? What happened in this chat? What did someone say about that again? Revisions and yeah, translations too. That's pretty cool. So that's the link there again, Copilot Lab. I'll have it here again here in a moment. Some additional resources, like I said, for those prompts is that Copilot Labs. That links to their blog. They are making so many advancements. Microsoft is pouring more money and resources in this than I think anything else. Copilot is everywhere. It's beyond just 365. You're going to be able to, they have APIs available. It's coming into their development areas. You can use it for generating code. It's super cool. One great place that I would suggest you start before you ask us to get you 365, if anyone wants us, before you have anybody or start adding Copilot licenses to your account, I'd recommend checking out this 365 readiness assessment document. Microsoft has, it's just an Excel file. It's got a long Q&A on it. It's going to give you a score and tell you how ready you are for it. If you're over a certain score, you're probably ready to at least deploy it for your individual, for leadership or people who are going to be testing this thing out first. I think the biggest barrier to entry for most people getting it everywhere is really locking down their data. That's going to be a tough part of this. There's also a link that we'll send you for writing better prompts with Copilot from Microsoft. It's one that's probably worth hanging on to. And then I think I got just one last piece here, and I think it's just kind of neat. Maybe you've guessed this already, but I actually built pretty much this entire presentation with Copilot, minus the videos. I asked it to create an outline on Copilot. I asked it to create a call to action. I asked it to create this presentation using this document. And then I asked it to create slides for each of the products. So I said, add a slide for this, add a slide for this, add a slide for this. And I think that we also used it in our hyping for this thing as well. Jordan and I used it to help come up with a headline for this. We asked it to inject some dog puns into it too, but they seemed a little too corny, so we didn't end up using those. But that's the last slide.
Unleash.
Oh, we did. Unleashed. Yeah, unleashed. There we go. So that's the last slide I got for you. It's Q&A time if anybody has anything.
Yeah, you can see how a tool like this in the right hands, it amplifies what they can do and speeds up what they can do. I mean, it's not something that's just going to eliminate jobs. If it's going to amplify them,
right.
Or at least it has the power to do that. If you learn some new tricks, and this is the beginning of that, I think that was great. I mean, I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you have some questions and want to stick around for a few more minutes, you can. Otherwise, we will be sending out, we need some folks to fill out a small survey that you attended this. It helps us get more clout with Microsoft. They can help support us getting this message out. So, but it requires at least some people attending and giving feedback on it. So we'll send that out. Anything else, Joe?
No, I don't have anything else. I mean, if I tried to address most of the questions that we get here, but of course, if you're an existing customer or not a customer, we're happy to talk to you about this stuff. If you have someone you're already working with for IT and you need, you're not sure that they've gotten this far, we've advised other companies that are already working with somebody else and at least pointed them in the right direction so they can tell their existing provider, hey, here's what I need. I had somebody reach out to me and say, hey, I ended up just buying this myself. How do I get it applied to my account? And I told them how to do that. So can certainly help with that.
Looks like we got a couple of questions possibly coming in. I can see some folks typing.
Okay.
But yeah, if you're not a Top Dog client, please fix that, because we can do great things together. That's our goal. Our mission in this world is to help others win, and that means you and your business, and that's why we exist. So we love when our clients win, and that's what we're all about. Here's a question.
Sure.
It's hard to type out, but looking at using Copilot for Excel or others, I can block data sets, salary, payroll, or something, question mark.
Yeah. So this goes back to you can block data sets. So it's the exact same thing. It's the same thought process we have to put into securing our data today. So if somebody doesn't have access to that data today, they will not be able to query Copilot for it. Copilot is living under the same rights and permissions that you have as an individual user. So if you don't have access to that right now, if one of your employees doesn't have like salary, payroll, like is one of the examples, because that was a big one. I could go in and I could ask, it actually has some safeguards built in. If I ask it, how much does Jordan Darling make? And even if I had that information stored somewhere, it'd say, I'm not going to tell you, but you could change that query to get it to respond. So yeah, it all comes down to locking down your data. And that's why one of the reasons that I recommend, if you don't feel confident about that, start with leadership for this product, play around with it there before, you unleash it on the masses, because you're going to start to identify those things. But it could end up being a project that's a project probably everybody needs to do once a year, is where is our data living, who's got rights to it, that type of thing.
100%. But you're right, there are ethics involved, and that's another topic for another day to dive into that. But I tried to have Copilot create a picture of Joe riding a Minotaur, and it said it wouldn't do it. It didn't like me asking to do that.
I did. One that I didn't share was the image generation, which is super cool. I thought I'd recorded that, but I didn't include it in the slide. So you can actually ask Copilot to generate images for you. I had it generate a picture of a cute computer sticker and a little computer with some flowers on it. I had it do an image of a computer in the style of Salvador Dali, and it did that. It draws like 4 different ones. So it's building them from scratch. Those are not human generated. I'm sure it uses human generated art to inform it, but it's generating unique works based on that. Sometimes it generates some pretty weird looking things, so you got to correct it.
For my LinkedIn post that was promoting this event, I had it create a picture of a robot, because I asked right away. I said, "Are computers taking our job? Or are machines taking our jobs?" And I had it create me a picture of a robot in an office, like doing work. And I was so that picture was from that.
Okay. And I can actually, Copilot is now prompting me to generate meeting notes for this meeting. So it's doing that now. Yeah, we can.
Well, it doesn't look like we have any more questions.
Hold on. There's the Q&A. I saw a dot.
Oh, there's a Q&A.
Yeah, yep. So all users within a company have to get a license, or a handful of staff. Yes. So good question. If you don't have to buy it for everybody, you can license one user if you want. You don't have to get it for everybody.
But it is an annual license. If you missed that part, you have to pay for the whole year up front.
Yep, they make you prepay. But let's just say that you bought it and you're like, you know what, this isn't for me. I don't want to use it, but my coworker is probably a better candidate to really flesh this out. We can move that license to different users. It's not locked to that one user for the entire year. Anything else?
Questions?
I don't see any other unanswered ones.
like I said, we are doing this webinar again a few more
Mhm.
times. And we if you know someone else that wants to attend, please have them attend. I think we're really excited about this.
Yeah. So here's we got another question here. So, are there ways to block off certain information where Copilot doesn't release? Yes, they do have a tagging feature in there that allows you to tag things that you just don't want it to index at all. Like even if I have access to this, I don't want you to use this as part of your large language model. Good question.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just give a moment here for any other follow-ups that might show up. Otherwise, I'm impressed because when the last time I did this, I didn't record all those things. I did it live, and it took well over an hour to get done. So having a little bit of time ahead of this at the end has been great.
Well, and there's just so much you can do, and you can get better and better and do more and more complex things. But like I tried to explain, and when promoting this, like it doesn't take long to get some sort of value on it.
Right.
It doesn't take, like, you can learn, ask it to do stuff. I had to do something very simple the other day. I had to copy, certain columns. I was trying to upload a list, and I had to copy columns from one Excel document to another, and I needed to just I needed to hide a bunch of columns on multiple documentation, and I just asked, "Hey, Copilot, can you do this for me?" And it did it. Like would have taken me like 10 minutes. I got it done in 2.
Yeah. We got a question about Copilot for GCC. Yeah, so Copilot is a separate license. There's no additional discounts or anything like that. I think that this is one of their more expensive things to sell. So like even as a Microsoft vendor, they're not giving it to us at any discount for free. We don't get demo licenses. They give us demo licenses of a lot of things, and they're not doing it because it's computationally expensive. They've had to build out their data centers significantly to support this software. It uses expensive graphic cards or GPUs from NVIDIA to create the output. So I think on GCC it's the same price. I think it's $30 a month, prepaid for a year. So we got a couple more comments. So we'll stick around to let those come out too. So we still got some time left.
Oh, we are a Top Dog PC client. Thank you for your partnership, buddy. Which has been great, by the way. I didn't say, he said that. I didn't. How long to turn on, say, 3 execs or managers, and what would it be if we launched it to 50? Do you all help with data lockdown suggestions?
So turning on, buying the license and turning it on happens almost immediately, but I think that you don't, because it has to take a little time to start indexing your data, give it at least 24 hours before it starts providing valuable responses. But as far as locking things down and yeah, that's gonna be a little bit of a project, right? Because you got to look at where all of your data is. And it's also important to know, and this is one of the things that you're gonna get in that Excel document, that questionnaire. It's going to ask you where your data is. If Copilot can't see it, it can't do anything with it. So if all your data is on local file shares, it's not going to be as valuable to you as it is if you've got it in SharePoint or OneDrive. Yeah, it's next question, can you grant access to specific employees for specific information? So if they need access to protected data, is it possible for Copilot to filter that information given based on the user? Yeah, so there's a number of ways to do this, right? So you can filter that, you can restrict that data to that user, and this would be the way I would recommend doing it. Restrict it to that user just like you would if you wanted only this particular user or this group of users to have access to data. This goes back to kind of file sharing rights and permissions. But then there's also these advanced tags that you can have on data sets that you can manipulate further, but that can add confusion. So you maybe want to make a decision on how you want to restrict that data. My recommendation would always be, if they need access to this and they can access it with Copilot, let's let them access it with Word or Excel or wherever that data is. But yes, you can lock it down, and it all comes back. It's not even really a Copilot question. It goes all the way back to it's a data security piece. Let's rights and permissions. Let's lock these things down so that the people who need access to them have access, and the people who really don't, they just can't see it or don't have access to it.
All right, well, that's our time for the day. Thank you to everyone who attended and took time to join us. We really appreciate it. I hope it was beneficial to you. And, be in touch with us if you want to go to any other steps in this process. We're happy to help.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate you visiting. Take care. Bye-bye.